Well, we got all our tools picked up and brought them back to our Forever House build, and we said goodbye to our open concept modern tiny house last week.
I mean, it was great to see the thing go out the yard, but also at the same time it was pretty hard on the wife. She really bonded with that tiny house. Anna put her heart into a lot of the stuff that made the tiny house so great. So
between the two of us, we always have this challenge of me having kind of the wild, crazy ideas. Let's do this. Let's try this. Let's make this work. And him saying, well, it actually has to work. It has to work for a long time. So. Well,
I mean, you don't want something that's going to work a couple of times.
Yeah. No, I agree. But he let me run wild with just about everything and anything. The pantry cabinet was like a last minute idea, and we were actually scheduled to be done with that tiny house. And I said, you have to let me do this project. And so we were blown away by all the comments and the feedback and the response to the tiny house. And we just want to answer a couple of quick questions about the tiny house before we move on.
One of the ones was, how do we heat the place?
So I'm hooking up the heating source for this tiny house. It's a Laser 300 made by Toyo. Puts out about 15,000 BTUs.
And what that is a little oil drip stove. It's rated to heat up to 600 square feet, which in Alaska we always double the size of a heater. You know, we're heating a little over 200 square feet, but it was down to 40, 50 below, and you know, keeping that tiny house at 68 degrees. So our client's brother, he's a welder, and he come up with a nice fuel tank for the outside that looks really nice in the house. I think we figured out in the winter months that tiny house is going to burn right at about a gallon a day. You know, a pretty economical little tiny house.
So another question that we had was, how much does the tiny house cost? So if just a bare bones estimate, I would say, depending on where you live and what kind of appliances you need, how much insulation you need, whether or not you need triple pane windows, whether or not you need an expensive heater, if you can get a reasonably priced trailer, somewhere between $20,000 and $30,000 just for materials. As a standard rule of thumb, you're going to double that cost for labor. I would truly love to make a tiny house for everybody that wants one, but living up here in Alaska, that's just not feasible. Just the cost of shipping it to the lower 48, much less New Zealand or Australia, would just be way too much. So what we're going to do instead is make the plans available. So I'm working on the plans right now. They take me a long time to do because I want to be very detailed, and I always look at it as, if I spend the extra time doing something right and planning and figuring something out, it saves however many other people that much time. Give you something that you can take to a contractor or two contractors or three and get different bids on it, or you could take it to your home improvement store, get a materials bid on it, and do it yourself. So look for that in the next couple of weeks. Another big question that many of you had was about the bed, and honestly that bed was a big risk. And we really went into it knowing that it probably wasn't going to work.
Never know until you try.
Up until the day that he put the pins in and secured it, I was really doubting that this was actually we're going to pull this off and it was going to work well and it's going to be safe.
And if that goes down on those pins, are you going to crawl into bed and then be like...
Yeah, that was the big thing.
You know?
I was worried about I wasn't so much worried about will it hold the weight of the bed. I was worried about there was going to be movement.
Yeah, so I mean,
and metal on metal clanging every time you
move, you're like, oh, I can't sleep in this bed. But
and it did do that until
other things you might be doing in that bed, you know.
Stop it. So anyway, the bed was a huge risk, and we were completely prepared for it to be a fail. And it actually worked. It did take some fine-tuning on our part, and I'm going to do a whole post on it on my blog, just with more details, everything that we learned, some recommendations. If you're really antsy to get started building that bed, I have linked to the sources in the tiny house photo tour, and I'll provide that link in the tiny house tour video. So another concern that a lot of you had was moving the tiny house and all these moving parts flying around, and it's a really good concern. But with this particular client, he said this tiny house may be moved once or twice in its entire life. And that kind of was the green light for me to do whatever I wanted inside of it. But we have moved it several times, just taking it down to get siding and then delivering it to the client. And all I do is I take the rolling ottomans and I turn them on their sides. And then I take a bungee cord and hook it to the sliding bathroom door, and then hook that around to the shower curtain hook so that the door can't go anywhere. and I take the doors off of the storage console so they can't fly around. You know, if you were building this tiny house and you were planning on traveling a lot with it, I would, you know, maybe suggest creating like little locks in there that you can lock things down easily. So if you're new to our videos, we've been working on a series where we're building our forever home. Thank you to some of our viewers that have been following along on our house build, being patient with us while we tied up our loose ends on the tiny house. Our daughter she's pretty much halfway out of the house, and she hasn't really had a forever home in, you know, a space that she's gonna think of when she thinks of home. So it's really important that we get this house done and that she has time to bond with it, and you know, hopefully it'll get her to come home from college and come visit us once in a while. So we're working really hard on it. We started on it last May, and we got a foundation in.
Then we went and built up the downstairs walls and ICF, and then framed all that. Then we went from here to erecting a timber frame, SIPS panels on the outside, and enclosed to getting all the windows and the roof on this place. So now we're on to the interior work. And that is getting all the utilities in.
The last project on this house was the recessed lighting that has to go in this floor cavity. We have to put the lights in before we can actually put the subfloor on. So it's kind of been this chicken and egg thing where you need to put a utility in before you can put the subfloor on, because there's no other way to access it because we have the tongue and groove over the beams. But then you need the upstairs walls to be built to run the utilities in, but you don't have the subfloor on, so you can't build the walls. So
it's a balancing act, trying to figure out.
It's been hard.
Actually, it's not been too bad. It's just trying to figure out. Don't get ahead of the edge.
I'm so glad you're the plumber, the electrician, and the HVAC guy, and the framer.
Sometimes I wish I wasn't.
Get your other tool belt on.
Exactly. So anyway, it's been a challenge in trying to make sure that all the utilities go in the upstairs, because we got HRV that's got to go upstairs. Finish a little bit of ABS plumbing, and got some water lines that go up there. So yeah, there's a few things, but all in all, we're getting there, and the house is looking really good.
The big thing is we want to get the recessed lighting in on the upstairs bedroom areas. Then we can bring the subfloor out, and then from there we can build the bedroom walls.
Putting down subfloor today. What that entails is we're putting in the seed of subfloor adhesive, and basically, you know, sets your plywood to your joist so you don't have squeaky floors. We're gonna go ahead and shoot it with some 8D ring shank nails. Your subfloor is done, and then you go ahead and start framing walls.
So we got the subfloor done up to the kids' bedroom walls, the walls that divide it, and we can't go any further because now we need to run the ducting and all the electrical up into that wall. But as we're building it, there's supposed to be 2 closets that extend all the way up to the ceiling between the kids' bedrooms. And there's these closets, I keep looking at it, I'm like, man, it seems like such a shame. There's gonna be, it's like 16-foot ceilings inside the closet. I'm like, we gotta come up with something better than that. So I had this idea to put a floor on top of the closets, and the kids can have like a secret hideout reading area on top of the closets, and it wouldn't really cost us any more or really change anything. You know, we just built the walls up to like a standard wall height, and then I hung some joist hangers, and we dropped some 2x4s in on top of that, and we put some leftover subfloor plywood on top of that, and we created a little play area for the kids, and I can't wait to finish that out. This actually turned out really cool, and there's so much headroom, and it's just this bonus space that would have otherwise been wasted. It's just been such an on-the-fly decision. I haven't really thought too much about what we're going to do with it. If it's going to be a reading nook or a hideout, I'm going to do railings or walls. Why don't you guys let me know in the comments what you think I should do with this space? What do you think we should do with it?
Like zip line would be fun.
Could zip line down the hall and a fireman pole. Or we could do a lot of fun stuff with this. So. We're just going to keep trucking along. Now that we have these walls up, we can start bringing the HRV into the walls, and hopefully our big goal is to get this subfloor put up on the upstairs.
Hopefully you guys enjoyed this video, and hopefully we answered a few questions. So
Time to get back to work. We'll see you next week.
See ya.